Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Therapy Ain't No Joke. I am the architect here, Sean Garvey. Thank you so much for tuning in to our very first episode of 2026. If you are new to the program, this is the show in which we talk about all things considered mental health in our community and a place and a platform for all of us, including myself, to be vulnerable during these crazy, crazy times that we are living in. To, of course, maintain and manage our mental well-being. Before we go any further, something I haven't done in a while, in a long time, and if you remember, back when I was at 1380 WLK a few years back, I would do these breathing exercises before we started the show. Well, the show was actually already started, but before we went any further into the show, I encourage people to do a quick breathing exercise if they are being stressed, if you are listening and you just coming from work and you might be in traffic and you experiencing all different forms of mental illnesses, or you could be just experiencing some sort of anxiety, if you will, or anything that ticked you off today. You want to take a moment to breathe in and breathe out. So we're going to do it real quick before we go any further. Let's all do it together. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. And we all should be doing that every single day, not once a week, not twice a week, not every one or two times per quarter, per season, but every day. Life is stressful, and we as human beings, as people, need to take a moment to just be in a quiet place, in a quiet room, just like the one that I'm in right now, and just do a couple of breathing exercises so that way you can be back to being in a place of calmness, if you will, and distance yourself away from all of the distractions, all the noise, all the things that can interrupt your mental well-being. Therapy ain't no joke. You see the ticker at the bottom of your screen there for more information on how you can watch the program. We are on demand. We are everywhere. We're not just only on one particular platform, but we are also on multiple platforms. YouTube, follow us there on our new YouTube channel, the Mental Space Network. We have been operating that platform for a couple of weeks now. And when you go on to the Mental Space Network via YouTube, you will not only see Therapy Ain't No Joke or some of his past archive shows, but you will also see other shows that we happen to carry on the Mental Space Network, including Maya Kai. Shout out to Maya Kai, who is now back with us here at Reach One Communications. My ambition, your ambition. She has a lot of great content as she covers more on mental health and other things tying in with mental health. So I encourage you all to check her out as well. The Dominique Chantel show is also on the Mental Space Network. And Quita, I am Quita Speaks. You can check out some of her shows on the Mental Space Network as well. So make sure you check out all of the great programming on the Mental Space Network on YouTube and follow us there everywhere. You can also follow us on social media at the Mental Space Live, including on our Instagram. I really haven't been posting a lot of stuff on the Mental Space Live Instagram, but just bear with me. We're making some new changes internally, and we will be able to be more visible on all those social media platforms and other platforms that are adjacent to Therapy Ain't No Joke. I appreciate you all for coming on tonight's show. Big shout out to Rasta and his family. A very important piece to Therapy Ain't No Joke. And Happy New Year to him and his family as well. We're going to go into it. We decided to do something a little bit different in 2026. Usually before we actually start the show, we play some music in the background, something light, something mellow, just to kind of ease our way into the program. But we're just going to go right into the show because this show is important. Every episode that we do is important, and we don't want you to miss out on anything. Okay. Tonight's topic is, what does therapy look like in 2026? Whether it's for you, whether it's for someone you know, or whether it's for me. What does therapy look like in 2026? And if you are watching us live on YouTube or watching me live on Facebook and on Instagram at Sean Garvey ATL, you can comment in the comment section and weigh in on the conversation, or something else that I decided we should do in real time, because this show is live. You can be a part of the conversation and weigh in on the conversation by joining in. You can message me and put in the comment section, and I'll make sure to send you the StreamYard link, so that way you can join in on the conversation and be able to share your thoughts or your story on how you are managing your mental well-being. But we already are getting some comments coming in. Let's see if we can pull them up here before we go into tonight's topic. Shout out to Ryan of Ryan O Media. He says, this is a great show. Everyone should be tuned into. Therapy ain't no joke. That is correct. Everybody should be tuning into this show because we all need it. There's plenty of other therapy shows, therapy-based shows that are out there, but we are a little bit different. We're interactive with our audience. We talk about things that other therapists and other people in those spaces may not be able to talk about. We are a big community, and we bring in all different walks of life. So I appreciate it, Ryan, for saying that on the live here. And thank you so much for tuning in. And make sure you tell somebody and let people know to tune into Therapy Ain't No Joke. Before I go any further, I know I keep saying that, but I want to make sure that I do my due diligence and being informative as much as possible when I do shows like these. Just to give you some background history on Therapy Ain't No Joke, in case you are very, very new to the program or very, very new to this type of platform. Therapy Ain't No Joke is an offspring of the mental space. And of course, our platform is called the Mental Space Network, which, again, you can like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We, by the way, just FYI, we have 18 subscribers on the Mental Space Network. The Mental Space Network is different from Reach One Network. We have two, not one, but two YouTube channels, but we have one solely dedicated to the community that embraces and enjoy watching shows like these from a mental health perspective. But the Mental Space was a show that I created on 1380 WAOK and V103 HD3 in Atlanta back in 2022, 2023. And the show took off because it became the first ever mental health weekly show aired on a talk radio station based in Atlanta. And it took off very well due to the continuity of the show, due to the messaging of the show, even the guests that we have had on the show, whether they are celebrity like influencers or, you know, people that are already in the broadcasting industry, or everyday people, or, you know, people you may have heard on the news that may have lost a son or a daughter due to violence or due to suicide, and the negative impact that it has made to people, and even therapists and even lawmakers. All different types of people have came on the mental space during the 2 years that I curated and hosted the Mental Space on 1380 WAOK. And then afterwards, I pretty much wanted to rebrand the program and turn it into something else, to where it can be just as much as interactive as the Mental Space was, but also be able to do it from the comfort of my own home studio. I was so used to doing the Mental Space at 1380 WAOK so much. And it's not to say that I didn't like it or anything. It's that it was a controlled environment. Whereas I'm able to do it in the comfort of my own home without having to drive to the radio station. I pretty much literally drive drove, past tense, drove to the radio station 7 days a week because I not only was a on-air personality or host on that station doing the mental space, but I also worked behind the scenes. I was the producer. I was also uh, the webmaster to some extent for the radio station. I've done so many things behind the scenes at the radio station that it was an a point for me to go to the radio station 7 days a week and be able to assist in the daily duties that needed to be performed at that radio station. And it took me years before I actually could start my own show and get it greenlit by the powers that be at the radio station to be able to be the first African American broadcaster in history to launch a weekly, once a week mental health show. And I felt during the climate, or not during, but we're still in that climate, but it just seems like it's gotten a bit more complex than ever before. The climate that we're in right now, I felt it was a need, especially a couple of years after the pandemic in 2020. There was a need, a void to fill, to be able to bring awareness about mental illness and to even be an advocate, which I am an advocate for mental health, and to bring in different therapists and people that work professionally in the field to come on the show and talk about the importance of going to therapy and how therapy has helped them along the way in their mental health journey. So I appreciate everybody, even the staff there at the time at WAOK, and even the listeners and the viewers that tuned in, the social media followers that tuned in and watched therapy. I'm sorry, not therapy, ain't no joke, but the mental space at the time, because everybody couldn't listen to terrestrial radio or may not be able to access transistor radio to listen to the mental space due to the fact that it was on an AM station. And if you could not access the show nor the station at that time, then you could go to the website or go online or download the app and listen to me for those 2 hours. Sometimes we went beyond 2 hours because it was just that great. So we somewhat went overtime with it. But big shouts to my producer, Simone Williams. I got to make sure I big her up for doing an amazing job with the show during the time that I was there. And we had some great times. I will say that, I will admit that we definitely had some great times and some vulnerable conversations, even at times some uncomfortable conversations with people that came on the show and shared their testimonial stories about their mental health journey. So that's just a little quick, brief history behind Therapy Ain't No Joke. And you can catch some of the past episodes of Therapy Ain't No Joke on our YouTube channel as well that I just mentioned, the Mental Space Network, available right now. And Therapy Ain't No Joke actually came back on the air, I want to say September of 2024. I was on a hiatus due to my relocation from Atlanta to Florida. And when I came back to Atlanta, that's when I relaunched the rebranding of the mental space into Therapy Ain't No Joke. And to fast forward now, we have our YouTube channel, the Mental Space Network. You can watch on demand 24/7. Even if you miss highlights of tonight's show, you can go on demand and watch it at your earliest convenience. But let's get back to the topic. Let's get into the topic, actually. What does therapy look like in 2026? I know a lot of people have been saying over the past few days, and by the way, Happy New Year to you all. Goodbye to 2025 and still welcoming 2026. A lot of people have said the same thing that everybody else been saying. Let's leave 2025 behind. 2025 was a very trying year for so many people. And I will go on record, to be honest with you, and say that for a lot of people, there's been a handful of people. Let me just say this. There's been a handful of people who will say that 2025 was not the best year. Definitely was not the best year. A lot of things happened. And as years progress, as we continue on in this world, things have become more political than ever before. In this crazy political climate that we're in, right? And not even just that, but there's been a lot of deaths in 2025. A lot of deaths. Even the ones that me and you didn't anticipate or didn't expect that someone of a particular stature would be gone too soon. In 2025, I learned that one of my family members have passed away. And this particular family member of mine was more so on my biological dad's side. So I have one particular family on this side and then another family on this side, on my dad's side and on my mother's side. Now I've lost my grandmother on my mother's side in January of 2020. So that was 5 going on 6 years now. And last year, I got a call from my cousin on my biological dad's side one summer ago, last year, 2025, that my grandmother on their side passed away. And I was numb when I got that call. I didn't know what to think. But the interesting thing about it was that my grandmother, who passed away in 2025, she was dealing with multiple mental illnesses. Here's the backstory. And this is something that I wasn't going to share on air, and I wasn't going to plan on sharing it to my viewers and to my listeners. But I'm very candid and open about certain things that transpired in my life and what have you. And it's just part of me, and because I use radio as a form of therapy. So my grandmother and I won't disclose her name just out of respect. My grandmother and I, we started out having a good relationship, especially when I was a baby. When I was a baby and growing into a young kid, I would see her from time to time, and there weren't any issues. I was young at the time. I didn't know everything, but I was just always that sweet kid around her. And then I remember, if my memory serves me correctly, a couple of months after my grandfather on my biological dad's side, once again, we have to go back to the biological dad's side. My grandfather passed away in 2013, Rex Garvin Sr. And I did somewhat of a memorial on his behalf months after he passed away. And I put it out there on social media. It was a local DJ in Atlanta, and he played a few songs from my grandfather that he composed and that he performed a long time ago, way before I was born. And it was our way of memorializing him on Facebook, on social media. When my grandmother got wind of it, she called and she was very upset at me. This was 2013, but 2014, because again, this was months after my grandfather passed. This was 2014. And so she was just like on 100 when she was talking to me. And she never talked to me in that kind of manner ever before. And that was the last time I spoke to her, which I really didn't say much. I was just letting her go. She just kept talking and talking and talking, ranting and ranting and ranting. And I didn't say much because it just caught me off guard. It caught me off guard. And then ever since then, I never spoken to her ever before. Never spoken to her ever again. And then my cousin calls me one summer ago, like I just said, and broke the news to me that she passed away. 2025 now. And I was like, huh, okay. But then the other part of my brain thought over these past few years, especially after distancing myself from my grandmother, I was under the impression that she was already gone. And that's how long that my grandmother and I did not speak to each other. That's how long ago. And I just kept replaying that phone call over and over and over again, telling myself, dang, what would have had been like if me and her have spoken again after all those years? Like, what would those conversations have been like? Would we have patched things up? Would we have not even bring up what happened in the past and we just move on and we just talk about what she's doing, what I'm doing, and just making her smile like I did when I was a little kid back in the day? We're talking about like the late 80s, early 90s, different time in my life and a different time period in America. But I guess we will never know. So, and then most recently, I lost a colleague of mine in the media profession. And, you know, if you saw my special edition of Therapy Ain't No Joke a couple of weeks ago, I talked a little bit about it. And I was numb as well, too. But I only knew him for a short period of time. And it got me to think about my mortality here on this planet called Earth. You know, I mean, it's a cliche to say that life is too short. That's a cliche. I want to make sure the volume is up here. Okay. That's a cliche. Life is too short. We've heard that ever since we were kids. And as you get older, yes, life is short. When you're a kid, no matter how old you are, 5, 10, 15 years old, you think you're going to live forever. You think you're going to be a superhero. You're going to live to see 1,000 years old, and you are immortal. But then as you get older and you start seeing people dying at 50 or at 80 or even younger than that, at 20, 25 or 30, you start to question your own mortality. And you spend all your life or the remainder of your life or portions of your life walking around being angry, upset, depressed, oppressed about stuff that you either can't control or that you can control, because you can do one or the other. You either can't control it or you can control it. And I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, you know, I'm 41. I'm going to be 42 in a few days. And things don't get to me like they used to be back in the day. I had a lot of people who tested me, who challenged me, who pushed me to that level that I, wanted to resolve it in a different form of fashion. But then I also remember what my therapist said. Shout out to Brian Smith over at T2S Enterprises. He said to me, he suggested that before I could say anything to anybody, before I could get into a confrontation with that individual that said something to me that was very disrespectful or put me in a very uncomfortable position, I need to step back and just breathe. Do a few breathing exercises. And that's why I wanted to start the program off by going back to doing what I'd done on the mental space on 1380 WAOK a few years ago. Breathing in, breathing out, inhaling, exhaling, and just relax. Just relax. We're in a time right now, people, where everything is happening all at once. Some things we can't control. We can't control change. Change is going to happen. Technology, relationships, certain things, some things we can't control. Illnesses to a certain extent. But what we can control is right up here. It's having a different mental outlook on life, having a different perspective on life, changing the people around you. You know that classic saying, if you can't change the people around you, change the people around you in 2026. Or having a different perspective on how you see therapy. I've had people who said to me, going to get therapy is expensive. Where are you getting your information from? Who told you that going to see a therapist is expensive? And it all depends. It all depends. But there are resources out there, and you've heard me say it a few times. We even put the information out there dozens of times on Therapy Ain't No Joke. But you probably have not seen 1 or 2 episodes of Therapy Ain't No Joke. But if you are a first-time viewer, welcome. We hope that you get all the information that you need by the end of tonight's show. But there are resources, free resources out there for people that cannot afford to go see a therapist. And then there are people that do go see a therapist, but they don't put in the work. They don't. Or there are people that do other things that are therapeutic to them that can be productive. But what happens when the inevitable knocks at your door? How are you able to manage that, or how are you able to handle that in times of crisis? Because again, so much stuff is being poured down to us as people that it seems like the only thing we could do is curate a podcast, put together a show, and just rant, moan, complain, and then that's it. And then maybe capitalize off of it, or maybe get the bag out of that. But what is it accomplishing? What is it exactly is it doing for you and your community and your family? What is it doing? So again, tonight's topic, what does therapy look like in 2026? You can comment in the comment section on my Instagram page at Sean Garvey ATL. You can even comment on YouTube at the Mental Space Show, or on my Facebook page at Sean Garvey. Follow me there, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Therapy Ain't No Joke. Therapy ain't no joke. What does therapy look like in 2026? What are you going to do differently in 2026? You know, 2020 has came and went. 2021 came and went. 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025 came and went. Now it's 2026. What does therapy look like to you in 2026? What are you going to do differently to help maintain and improve your mental well-being? Are you going to actually go seek a therapist for the very first time? You might have been one of those people that say, oh, I don't need a therapist. I don't need to pay somebody to hear my problems and tell me something that I already know. Or you may be like, I don't want to go to a therapist or whatever because I don't want people to think that I'm crazy, or, I'm just going to self-help myself without going to seek counseling or to go seek therapy because I can work it out on my own. I just figure it out. Or even for my church community, oh, I'm just going to let God handle it. I'm just going to let God handle it. I just put it in Jesus' hands. I just put it in God's hands. God is my therapist. Jesus is my therapist. Are you one of those that think like that or thought like that in 2025 and the previous years before then? We all have these positive expectations of what 2026 is going to bring. And then there are those that are uncertain about what's going to happen in 2026 because of so many different events that has happened in 2025. Are you willing to let go of toxic relationships and bad relationships in 2025 and to actually go back to your therapist or go see a therapist to work on those issues? Are you going to allow somebody or be vulnerable enough to unpack those things to a therapist in 2026? Are you actually going to do those things that you said you were going to do back in 2025 and 2024 and all the years before those years? Are you going to actually be about it in 2026? See, I no longer believe in New Year's resolutions. I don't believe in them. You either do them or you don't. That's the bottom line. I've seen some people say, oh, I'm going to do this in the new year and stuff, but you're only repeating what you didn't do that previous year. Why not just do it now? Why wait until 2026 or why wait until 2027? Because 2027 is going to be here before we even know it. We're almost 1 week in since the new year. I think we're 1 weekend. Yeah, we're 1 weekend, actually. This is the 7th of January, if you're watching us in real time. We're a weekend since the new year. It's 2026, y'all. And before we know it, it's going to be 2027. So again, what does therapy look like in 2026? I had a situation on Monday, and I talked about this on my social media. I had a situation where I went to a local medical center to donate plasma for the first time. I've never done that in my 41 years of being on this planet. But I donated plasma. And I was going in there to do something that could make a difference to someone or to help save someone's life. And without being too long-winded in this particular story, when I went in there, I was told to fill out a questionnaire and to provide valid information for them to look me up into the system or to put me in the system as a new donor. So I'm doing what I'm being told to do. And then I find myself in the waiting room for an hour and a half to close to 2 hours. And no one didn't come up to me to ask me, hey, have you been helped yet? That's all a part of customer service. So I'm just in the waiting room, waiting patiently for service. And then a personnel from the medical center came up to me. Well, actually, I had to pull him to the side. Let me make that very clear. I had to pull him to the side. And I was trying to tell him what was going on. And before I could say anything else, he cut me off. And he said, I don't want to hear about that. Just tell me, what are you in here for? This, that, and the other. So already he had pushed my button because I was getting ready to go nuclear on this guy who works in this medical facility, who didn't know me before I even walked in or while I was in the waiting room. I was getting ready to go nuclear on him because of how he came at me. But I also had to understand, as a first-time donor in an environment where you're dealing with a lot of patients and you're dealing with understaffed, I had to be patient myself. I was a patient that had to be patient. Well, more of a donor, if you will. And just to see what I'm dealing with. So again, without being long-winded, the gentleman later apologized to me for his behavior. And he collected some information from me just to make sure that I am the appropriate donor to be a part of this project. And one thing led to another, where I was also dealing with an irate personnel that worked in the medical center. She had a bad attitude, and I don't mean that in a good way. She had a bad attitude. And the only thing I said to her was, ma'am, I'm new here. I'm only being told what I need to do. And she was like, well, I'm telling you what you need to do. In a medical center. So again, going back to what my therapist told me recently, that if anybody confronts you or makes you feel uncomfortable or says something to you where you feel like you need to be combative with that person, before you can do all that, step back and do some breathing exercise. Just breathe. And that's what I did in that moment. That's what I did. I had to sit back, stand down, and breathe. We all know our own temperament when it comes to dealing with people. And everybody has different sensitivity levels. And another thing too to recognize in 2026 is you have to be able to acknowledge what your sensitivity level is. What is your temperament? Are you, you know, are you a very temperamented person? Do you um, feel like you got to win every argument? Do you feel like you got to get your point across by acting this way, by being this way? Like what is your sensitivity level and what does that look like? Just like the question I'm proposing to everybody on tonight's show, Therapy Ain't No Joke. What does therapy look like to you in 2026? Or what does your sensitivity level look like going into 2026? What are some things that you need to change about yourself to hold yourself accountable? What are you willing to do the work? What are some things that you can improve on to help manage the temperature in the room? Because when you get into it with someone at a medical facility or at a restaurant, if somebody messes up your order, or if you're not getting the proper customer service when you enter into a local establishment or a place of business, and that person may be having a bad day, you may be having a bad day, both of you all are having a bad day. What is the outcome? What do you think the outcome would be if there's going to be a lot of back and forth? At times, the outcome can be very, very volatile, to where police are involved, to where someone ends up on a stretcher, to where someone loses his or her job, to where someone is walking away in handcuffs. It's all about mental control and self-control. Days before my visit to the medical center, I stopped by this one local gas station in Little Five Points before I made my way to the radio station. And I wanted to just go and get a drink. Just to get an orange soda or something. And the person who's behind this window who works there, he has seen me 100 times. And he's going to argue and say to me that I need to leave my bag over there at the front. I was like, dude, you see me 100 times. Like, I'm a paying customer. And he's like, I don't care. I don't care. So what would you do in that situation? I mean, I could have complied and left my bag next to the door at this local gas station, convenience store, with knowing that somebody could come in that store and steal my bag. Because I had a lot of valuable stuff in that bag. But the person behind the window was in fear that I was going to come in and steal something. Again, you see me 100 times. I've always been a paying customer. Sometimes I just let them keep the change. Without having to go into any type of confrontation or argument with this gentleman at this local gas station, I decided to walk out of there and not patronize his business anymore, or the business, because I'm not sure if he was the owner of that gas station or not. But I just said, you know what, I just take my business somewhere else. I'm just not going to patronize your business. Anybody else would have walked in and may not do the same thing. And then, what would that have cost? It would have been something major, or something that could have turned into something major than what it should have been. And there's just a lot of people that are like that are in fear that something can or will happen. Or a lot of people just assume that a person, especially a person of color, will go in and do something bad, or whatever the case may be. Or he may just be having a bad day. I don't know. We all have bad days. But somebody in that particular moment, in that particular instance, has to control the temperature in that room. And I felt like it was my duty to control the temperature in that room, in both the gas station and at the medical facility that I was in a few days ago. Now, the younger version of me, I don't know, and knowing who I was back then, I probably would have been banned, or I probably would have been taken off in handcuffs, and how it was back then. Because, people used to think that I was just this quiet, shy type of person. No, I had a temper. And I have went nuclear on a few people. Let me not just say a few, on a lot of people. A lot of people. But again, at 41, just understanding and knowing the climate that a lot of people are in. And knowing that, you're not going to win in a situation where you feel like, if I just tear this person down, this person will respect me. No, it's just going to make things worse. It's going to make things worse. What does therapy look like in 2026? I was about to say the phone lines are still open, but this is a podcast / video. By the way, you can check us out on demand on Spotify and iHeart Podcasts and wherever you get your podcasts from, if you want to go back and listen and watch Therapy Ain't No Joke. What does therapy look like in 2026? Are you going to be your own advocate? Are you going to champion the awareness of getting help, of getting therapy, of seeking a therapist in your local area? The interesting thing about this year, 2026, and even the past few years, is that the internet, which is very old, but not too old, but not too new at the same time. It's like kind of like in the middle, if you will. And how it has shaped the way we react to things, to how we think, to how we treat each other. I think about going back to 2025. And we talked about this on Therapy Ain't No Joke. Of course, one of the most unfortunate moments that happened in 2025 was the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Let's just be honest. Charlie Kirk was a content creator. I never heard of a Charlie Kirk, didn't know him. But to me, and especially the clips that I've seen him in, after his assassination, to me, he was just a content creator who had a platform or who had platforms. And just like all of us, he had a voice, whether you agree with him or disagree with him. And then I think about all the other content creators and all the people that have used social media as a platform to get a lot of stuff off their chest, whether they are talking about politics, whether they are talking about social issues, whether they are talking about relationships. And a lot of things that I've seen in recent months, even in recent years, is seem like people are gravitating to these platforms as a way to seek validation or as a way to get some type of therapy or what have you. Or it's their way of expressing themselves instead of going to go see a therapist or going to go see a counselor. I'll give you a quick example. Recently, I saw a young lady on Instagram who went on a 40-minute to an hour rant calling out somebody in her family on social media. And I won't go into too much details about it, but she was on a rant. And some of the stuff she was saying at the time was very threatening. And I wanted to reach out to this young lady, DM her. I'm not into, commenting while somebody is on 10 on Instagram or on TikTok or whatever platform you are broadcasting from. But I wanted to DM this person and just let her know, hey, I'm here if you need to talk, or, I know some therapists, I know some people. I can give you their contact information, but, let me know if you need a safe space to talk. But then I didn't want to do that. And you probably thinking, why, Sean? Why? Well, she's probably too far gone mentally to listen to somebody that is coming from a rational place or from a helpful place. Sometimes there are people out there that don't need help. You give them help and they're like, oh no, I'm good. You can't force yourself, or you can't force yourself to give somebody help that don't want it or may not want it or what have you. You're doing it out of the kindness of your own heart. And I think a lot of us are on this planet for a purpose, is because, we want to help other people. We want to. But they also have to want it. And then, with us being emotional creatures, because that's what we are at the end of the day, we are emotional creatures. A lot of us don't think before we do. We just do it. We just do it. And we suffer with the consequences later. And what I've learned as a mental health advocate is that before I act on something, because I have to be more strategic than ever before. Before I act on something, I need to talk to somebody first. I need to talk to somebody first. I don't need to talk to 50, 100, or 500 people on social media and express outrage and things of that sort and talking about what I'm going to do to that person in real time. I need to talk to somebody first. Now you listening and you watching me and you saying, well, Sean, didn't you just said that you experienced this issue with the representatives or the personnel at the medical center, and then you went on social media and you put them on blast and you talked about your dismay of their lack of customer service, this, that, and the other. Yes, I did, ladies and gentlemen, I did. But if you go back and you watch my video on Facebook and on Instagram, I did it in a calm way. I did it in a very calm, peaceful way, but I also wanted to inform people on what was happening. I didn't call out anybody's names, or I didn't say what I was going to do to them and stuff. I was bringing awareness to an establishment that was lacking customer service and professionalism. This young lady and many others like her, because there are many others that do the same thing that she just did. They do it because, to some extent, is to get the attention, and for a lot of people, they're not able to channel their anger into other counterproductive things that could be more beneficial than those 30, 40 minutes that you spend on social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, or even X, and express your outrage to anybody that's watching. I mean, the internet is forever. The internet is undefeated, people. The internet is undefeated. And then there are certain things you just can't take back when you put certain things on the internet. I'm a media personality. Me, i.e., Sean Garvey. I am a media personality. And I went on air and went on live and went on video saying some of the most important yet polarizing things that I'm not able to take back. I put it out there. Once it's out there, it's out there. It's gone. Boom, bye. But have you regretted something that you have said on social media, on live, and you can't take it back? It's been put out there. People will see it. Your neighbors would see it. Your friends, your family members, your future employers, co-workers, associates, colleagues, even law enforcement will see it. Other content creators will see it. The internet is forever. And are you using social media as a way of therapy? Are you using it as a way of therapy? Ask yourself that question. Are you using the internet and social media as a way of therapy? And if so, how's that working out for you? So again, what does therapy look like in 2026? I think, to me, therapy looks like being more consistent in talking to my therapist on a regular occasion in 2026, and providing progress reports to my therapist, and also utilizing the tools and the resources that I have in front of me to advocate more on the importance of seeking a therapist, doing the things that are going to make you stay in control of your mental well-being, whether it's exercising, right? You say you're going to do that in the new year. Okay, do it. Go to the gym, exercise, do it. Take a walk, cycling, get engaged in some form of civic duty and help change things, help pass laws, or go into self-defense classes. Maybe you want to take martial arts for the first time. Maybe you want to uh, go and take boxing lessons, or even piano lessons, guitar lessons, whatever it is, or take up a new hobby like painting, craft, or just go on a walk to a park, or go to the beach sometimes and just look at the water, sit down on the sand and just reflect. That's also a part of therapy. Now they got these new apps and these new resources out there for people that may not have a lot of money to go see a high-end therapist, because there are plenty of high-end therapists. I'm not going to lie about that. There are plenty of high-end therapists, but then there are professional therapists. That there are so many therapists out there. But I believe, as a mental health advocate, I believe that getting help and seeking therapy is a human right. Getting therapy is a human right. We can go to the doctor's office for a checkup, for a colonoscopy, for our annual checkups, and to make sure that we good in other places and other parts of our body. But what about our mental? What about our mental? So I'm going to close the show out tonight. And just to let you all know that this show airs live Wednesday nights from 7 to 8, sometimes 7 to 9 p.m. And we're going to have some special guests come on. Therapy ain't no joke. We're going to have more guests than ever before in 2026. And I am so delighted of the amount of people that we're going to bring on the show. But before I close out the show, there's two things I want you to do, or you can choose one or the other, but I recommend two. Make sure that you contact the National Alliance for Mental Illness helpline. If you or someone you know needs mental health assistance, call the 1-800 number that you see on the screen right now. This is the National Alliance for Mental Illness helpline, or NAMI for short, at 1-800-950-NAMI. That's 1-800-950-NAMI, or 1-800-950-6264. Or you can send them an email to info at NAMI.org. That's info@NAMI.org. The operation hours are from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you make sure you give them a call. Or if you want to take an alternate route, you can call or dial the 3-digit number if you or someone you know is facing a mental health crisis. Dial the Crisis and Suicide Lifeline number, 3-digit number, 988, if you or someone you know is facing a mental health crisis, 24/7, 365 days a year. That's 988. And would you believe that there are people out there that did not know that these numbers exist. That's why we do Therapy Ain't No Joke. We're not just a show where we just talk about things happening in the mental health community or things that are happening in the news, or we're just speaking our minds about things or providing a safe space for people to get what it is off their chest. But we're also a platform where we give you information that you may not be able to get anywhere else, or you may not know. I'm all about paying it forward and about informing the people that there is help. Help is on the way if you allow it. So again, the 3-digit number 988, if you or someone you know is facing a mental health crisis. And you can also, again, I want to repeat, contact the National Alliance for Mental Illness helpline at 1-800-950-NAMI. That's 1-800-950-6264, or send them an email to info@nami.org. Operation hours are 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been my time. Therapy Ain't No Joke. I am Sean Garvey. Thank you so much for tuning in. All of the information is on the ticker there on your TV or on your mobile device, whatever device you are watching this program. And next Wednesday night, we will be back. We're going to talk about microaggression. We're going to do a 3-part series on microaggression. And I'm so looking forward to talking about that. We're going to talk about where it stems from. How does it feel to have all that microaggression built up in you? And what we can do to alleviate that. And then there are a few people that I'm going to bring on the show, including one particular person, and she's been on the Beat Break Morning Show before, who works in the adult entertainment industry. And we're going to bring her back on this particular show, because Therapy Ain't No Joke is totally different from the Beat Break Morning Show. But we're going to bring her on, and we're just going to have more of a deep dive conversation. So I'm also looking forward to that. And also, show ideas, episode ideas. I am open to them, by the way, just so you know, FYI. The Mental Space Show at gmail.com. That is the email address where you can contact me and email me whatever you want to talk about. What do you want to talk about as it pertains to mental health and therapy? Make sure you email me, the Mental Space Show at gmail.com. And we do read all of our emails. So if you have an episode idea, or if you want to be a guest on the show and want to be able to talk about what you want to talk about, trust, this is a safe space. This is not a private show now, because we got to broadcast. We got to continue to raise the awareness in front of people. The Mental Space Show at gmail.com. And one other thing too, before I forget, I got to shout out the Walk for Peace. It is my understanding that the people from the Walk for Peace initiative are now in South Carolina. And so this is a great opportunity for people to learn the Buddhist monks' culture in society and how they play a pivotal role in bringing the awareness about peace, love, and unity. I talked a little bit about it on the other show that I do on WRFG here in Atlanta. And please, people, take something away from what the Buddhist monks are trying to accomplish. What they're doing does tie in with therapy and with mental health, but take something away from it. As I said before, especially earlier in the show, there's a lot going on. A lot of people are in crisis. A lot of people are in need of help. But as people, let's take a moment to not only acknowledge what they are doing, but to take something away to where we can apply it into our own society, into our own community. You can't cure violence with violence. Let me say that one more time. You cannot cure violence with violence. But what you can do is do things effectively that's going to bring forth change and a message to a lot of people that will better society and how we treat one another. And let me also say this too. This is not the type of show where we talk about too much political stuff. Like I said before, we've had political figures on the mental space a couple of years ago. And in this political climate that we are in, a platform like this is not the home for divisiveness and to argue and say which party is better than the other or which party is worse than the other. This is not a show for only Republicans. This is not a show only for Democrats or whatever your political preference is. I don't care what political party you are affiliated with. What I do care is that you take something away, either from this show, either from the Walk for Peace, or you could simply watch another mental health show and take something away as well and apply it to your community, to your family, and to yourself. So you can be able to be a very productive citizen in America or a productive person globally. Take something away from any important positive messaging that you adhere to and pay it forward. Just pay it forward in 2026 and beyond. All right, folks, this has been my time, the mental space, or of course, therapy ain't no joke, but you can check out the Mental Space Network 24/7. As soon as the show ends, you can go back and watch this episode from beginning to end. And until the next time, please take care of yourself and your mental well-being. And I will see you next Wednesday, same time, same platform on the Mental Space Network. Therapy ain't no joke. Sean Garvey. Enjoy the rest of your week.